This is case number CR 1923-01, State of Missouri versus Edward M. Watson. Mr. Bowman, Mr. Lee, for the state, are you ready to proceed?
Are, Your Honor.
Mr. Stabenow, Mr. Hassan, for the defendant, are you ready to proceed?
We are, Your Honor. Thank
And ladies and gentlemen of the jury, are you ready to proceed? The record will reflect that it's April 29th, 1923 at 7 p.m. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I'll now read you three instructions. Instructions are the rules by which this court will conduct itself. Instruction number 1, those who participate in a jury trial must do so in accordance with established rules. It's the court's duty to enforce these rules and to instruct you upon the law applicable to the case. It's your duty to follow the law as the court gives it to you. It's also your duty to determine the facts and to determine them only from the evidence and the reasonable inferences to be drawn from the evidence. In your determination of the facts, you alone must decide the believability of the witnesses and the weight and value of the evidence. It's important for you to understand that this case must be decided only by the evidence presented in the proceedings in this courtroom and the instructions I give to you. You should perform your duty as jurors without prejudice or fear and solely from a fair and impartial consideration of the whole case. Instruction number 2. The state of Missouri has charged the defendant, Edward M. Watson, with 2 crimes. Count 1 of the indictment charges the defendant with murder in the 2nd degree of James T. Scott as an aider and abettor. This means the state has not charged the defendant, Watson, with personally killing Mr. Scott. Instead, the state has charged that some other person or persons knowingly killed Mr. Scott and that the defendant knowingly aided, abetted, promoted, or encouraged, or attempted to aid, abet, promote, or encourage that person or persons to kill Mr. Scott. Count 2 of the indictment charges the defendant with involuntary manslaughter in the 1st degree, also known as reckless manslaughter. At the close of the trial, I'll give you detailed instructions about the law governing these charges. Instruction number 3, the defendant is presumed to be innocent unless and until during your deliberations upon your verdict you find him guilty. This presumption of innocence places upon the state the burden of proving beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant is guilty. A reasonable doubt is a doubt based upon reason and common sense after careful and impartial consideration of all the evidence in the case. Proof beyond a reasonable doubt is proof that leaves you firmly convinced of the defendant's guilt. The law does not require proof that overcomes every possible doubt. If after your consideration of all the evidence, you're firmly convinced that the defendant is guilty of the crime charged, you will find him guilty. If you are not so convinced, you must give him the benefit of the doubt and find him not guilty. Opening for the state.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Lay.
May it please the court.
Sir.
Opposing counsel. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Words are powerful. Words are persuasive. And words can push us to hurt one another. Today, we are here to talk specifically about the words of the defendant, Edward M. Watson, the editor and proprietor of the Columbia Tribune. Many of us, in fact, probably all of us, have read some of Mr. Watson's words, for we all read the Tribune here in Columbia. It's one of 2 newspapers in our town. We read our papers to understand the comings and goings of our community, and we turn to our papers in times of trouble to understand the world around us. Now, we are not here to discuss pleasant words. No, I am afraid we are here to discuss the words and phrases of the defendant that he used in his newspaper to say what he believed should be done to James Scott. If that name sounds familiar to you, well, it probably should, because less than a year ago, right here in Columbia, Mr. Scott was killed. He was killed on the evening of April 28, 1923. He was killed at the behest of popular passions within our community, and he was killed on the behest of the Columbia Tribune and Mr. Watson. He was killed by those who Mr. Watson described in his paper as men of sound judgment. Those men carried out what Mr. Watson asked, for them to provide swift justice. Those men did as Mr. Watson insinuated on the very day of Mr. Scott's death. that they let the halter draw on Mr. Scott. On the night of April 28th, Mr. Scott was being held in our town's jail. He was a black man, and he was accused of attacking a young white woman several days before. We will never truly know whether he was guilty of this crime, because on that evening, he was taken from that jail by an angry mob. Over 2,000 people gathered at our town jail to watch as a small group of unmasked, unarmed men broke into the jail with sledgehammers and a celatine torch to cut Mr. Scott out of his cell. Our police officers did nothing more than stand by and watch. In fact, one of the only people to come to Mr. Scott's aid was Professor Herman Olmsted, the father of the victim of the attack Mr. Scott was accused of. After Mr. Scott was dragged through the streets of Columbia by his neck by a noose, Professor Olmsted stepped before the mob and he asked them to let the court do their part, to let Mr. Scott be judged in a court of law, not in the streets. But in response, Mr. Olmsted was told by this mob to step aside or he would be hung too. And so it was that Mr. Scott was thrown off Stewart Bridge right here in Columbia. His neck snapped and he died instantly. His last words were, "I am innocent." Now, you may find it odd that in this retelling of what happened at the jail and what happened at the bridge, I haven't spoken of Mr. Watson. Now, he might have been there. He might have been lurking at the edge of the crowd, watching, or maybe not. No one is quite sure. He certainly did not wield a torch or a sledgehammer. He certainly didn't tie the noose around Mr. Scott's neck or push him off the bridge. No, those evil works were done by other men, one of whom, Charles Barkwell, will testify in this case. But the mob that murdered James Scott that April night was doing the work Mr. Watson set them to do. Mr. Watson's role in the killing of Mr. Scott began roughly a week earlier. Miss Regina Olmsted was attacked by a black man in our community on Friday, April 20th. Later that weekend, Mr. Scott was arrested and accused of the act. Since the beginning, the Tribune reported on the investigation of the case and editorialized the situation nearly every day in the week following the attack on Miss Olmsted. Throughout that week, Mr. Watson in his paper suggested that, quote, swifter justice should be done to the brute. The Tribune continued to stoke popular passions within the community for a lynching. The newspaper worked to normalize the notion of a hanging. And on the day of Mr. Scott's death, not only did the Tribune report on the investigation, but Mr. Watson himself wrote an editorial on the issue. And in this editorial, Mr. Watson suggested that men of sound judgment should save the community's tax dollars and instead should provide what he called summary justice. In short, a lynching. And he concluded in his editorial that Mr. Scott should feel the halter draw. Once again, another allusion to a hanging. Now, Mr. Scott has been charged in this case with second-degree murder and involuntary manslaughter. As Judge Oxenhandler informed you, he will tell you of the law and of the elements at the end of this case. What I will say is that we as the prosecution bear the burden of proof. We must prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Watson did indeed cause the murder of Mr. Scott. But to do that, we do not need to prove to you that Mr. Watson slipped the noose around Mr. Scott's neck to find him guilty. No. All we need to prove is that Mr. Watson intended for Mr. Scott to be killed and that he aided and encouraged such actions. At the end of today's trial, my esteemed co-counsel, Mr. Frank Bowman, will stand before you and he will ask that you find the defendant guilty. And when he does that, I ask that you remember the words of Mr. Watson, that you remember Mr. Scott hanging by his broken neck off Stewart Bridge. And I ask that you remember that words are powerful. They're persuasive, and they can push us to hurt one another. Thank you.
Opening for the defense. Mr. Hassan.
Opposing counsel. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Edward Moss Watson is a native Missouri, the son of a Civil War veteran, and the editor and owner of the Columbia Daily Tribune. He's a proud Columbian who received his education here at the University of Missouri. He was a member of Phi Beta Kappa, a distinguished honor society, and from there he began his career and his foray into the field of journalism. In the meantime, he gained a law degree, once again, here in Columbia, and was one of the top students in his class. He worked in politics briefly, serving in the office of a county general. But journalism was his calling. He spent several years working in newspapers in Jefferson City, in the great city of St. Louis, Missouri. He would return to Columbia to buy, in 1905, the Columbia Daily Tribune. The Tribune is a pillar in our community. It represents the voice of the people, and Mr. Watson has worked tirelessly to establish that through his work as the owner. Mr. Watson is one of us. He was deeply, deeply troubled by the misfortune that became Little Miss Regina Almstead. He was even further troubled when he found out that Mr. James Scott had been killed before he saw his day in court. Mr. Watson is an honorable man. And blaming an honorable man for the unfortunate events that befell those two, that would be a miscarriage of justice. Today, you will hear from Police Chief Rowland. The police chief will tell you how they investigated into the case of Mr. Scott, and he will tell you about that night, the night of the mob that killed Mr. Scott, and his perspective on the events of that night. You will hear from Mr. Almstead himself. Mr. Almstead will describe the suffering that his family has been through, the horror and the heartbreak. And he will also describe that night to you, as he provides a unique perspective on what took place. Lastly, you will hear from Mr. Watson himself. Mr. Watson will detail his intentions in the weeks leading up to the death of Mr. Scott. And he will explain how he did his job as the owner of a trusted community newspaper. At the conclusion of this case, my co-counsel, Mr. Troy Stabenow, will explain to you how the testimony of these three men prove that Mr. Watson was in no way responsible for the death of James Scott. He will ask you to find Mr. Watson not guilty on 2 counts. Count 1, second-degree murder under a theory of aiding and abetting. Mr. Watson's words were not responsible for Mr. Scott's death. Count 2, manslaughter, first degree. There was in no way any recklessness shown by Mr. Watson in the weeks leading up to Mr. Scott's death. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what happened to little Miss Regina Almstead was a travesty. What happened to James T. Scott was a greater travesty. The city of Columbia has been through enough. Mr. Almstead and his family have been through enough. Mrs. Scott has been through enough. Do not add another chapter to this horrible page in our community's history. Thank you.
Evidence for the state.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state of Missouri calls Mr. Hollis Edwards.
Please step forward, raise your right hand, and be sworn. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you now give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please take the stand. Please state your name.
My name is Hollis Edwards.
Proceed, counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Edwards, how are you employed?
I'm the associate editor and city editor of the Columbia Daily Tribune.
Could you tell us briefly about your education?
I attended the University of Missouri, and I went to the University of Missouri Law School, and then I needed to leave because of the Spanish-American War.
Did you enlist in the Army?
Yes, I did.
And did you serve?
Yes, I did.
Now, after you came back, did you enter the newspaper business?
Yes, I did, and I worked at the Columbia Herald, another newspaper. I worked at a newspaper in Kansas City, and then I published a small newspaper in Hallsville, Missouri.
At some point, did you start working for Edward Watson at the Columbia Daily Tribune?
I did upon its founding in 1901.
Okay, and so since it's now 1923, you've been working for Mr. Watson in the Columbia Daily Tribune for some 2 decades, would that be right?
Yes.
All right. Now, I want to expose the jury a little bit, familiarize them a little bit with the paper which you edit. In order to do that, I'm going to hand you a number of exhibits. Government's Exhibits 1 through 11, Your Honor, for your reference.
Any objection to 1 through 11, defense?
No, Your Honor.
1 through 11 will be admitted into evidence.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Edwards, you have those exhibits to refer to, but you'll also notice on this incredibly magical screen that we have up here in 1923, you will notice that there are some projections that may be of some help to you as we go through this testimony. First, I'd like to ask you a little bit about the newspaper, if I can. Is this the front page of the Columbia Daily Tribune, Government's Exhibit 1?
Yes.
All right. And I want to look on the second page of the Columbia Tribune to get a little bit of an idea of its layout. On the second page, do you have the masthead of the newspaper? That is to say, does it list the editors and others who run the newspaper?
Yes.
In particular, if you could take a look at Governments 2, who is listed as the editor and proprietor of the Columbia Daily Tribune?
E.M. Watson.
And that's Edward M. Watson?
Yes.
And when you say editor and proprietor, does he not only own it, but he also edits it?
Yes.
Okay. And what is your role there?
On a small newspaper like ours, I do a little bit of everything. I report, I write, I help edit things, I help in the production and the design. I even help in the distribution.
Okay. Now, the kinds of things that are in the Columbia Daily Tribune, would they include, for example, advertisements?
They would, yes.
Okay. And do we see some of those up here on the screen?
Yes, we do.
Okay. And is there also a publication of national news?
Yes, there is.
How do you get national news?
It's through what's called the Wire.
Okay.
And we have a Wire editor.
Okay. And you also publish social news.
We do. Miss Queen Smith publishes that.
All right.
Writes those.
Now, does Mr. Watson, Edward M. Watson, does he take an active role in editing the newspaper?
Yes, he does.
Is anything that's published in the Columbia Daily Tribune without his approval?
No, unless sometimes when he's out of town.
Right. Other than that, does he read everything that is published in the Columbia Daily Tribune?
Pretty much.
Okay. And does he approve all of it?
Yes.
Right. Now, what are your personal responsibilities with respect to local news?
Well, I report it, and I write it, and I edit it.
Okay. Are you the primary reporter for the Tribune for local news?
Pretty much. I mean, we have one or two other people that sometimes help as reporters.
Okay. So when you report local stories, does Mr. Watson review them before they're published?
Yes, unless he's out of town.
Okay. Does the Tribune also publish editorials?
Yes.
Okay. And I want to look here, if we can, oops, not yet, quite yet, at this inside space, the second page of the Columbia Daily Tribune.
What exhibit is that?
That's Government's Exhibit 4, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir.
If you look at the Government's 4 up here on the screen, where is the editorial space where the editorials customarily appear on side of the Columbia Tribune?
It's by the American flag.
It always appears right underneath the American flag, right?
Yes,
And who writes the editorials for the Tribune?
the colonel does.
Okay, that's Colonel,
Watson,
oh, he goes by Colonel Watson.
sometimes.
All right. Now, so Colonel Watson writes all the editorials.
Yes,
Okay. Now, just so I'm sure, last question. So long as Edward M. Watson is in Columbia, does anything get published in the Columbia Daily Tribune, any part get published in the Columbia Daily Tribune without his approval?
unless he's out of town.
All right. Now, I want to turn to the events that led to the lynching of James T. Scott. And I particularly want to direct your attention to Friday, April 20th of 1923. Was there an important crime story that broke on that day?
Yes,
What was it?
Regina Olmsted, who's a 14-year-old girl who goes to Columbia High School, was attacked.
All right. And how did you hear about this story?
The chief of police, Ernest Rowland, told me about it in my routine police check.
Okay. And did you write up what you heard from Chief Rowland?
I did.
Is there a Saturday edition of the Tribune?
There is. We publish 6 days a week,
Okay.
and we don't publish Sunday.
Got it. So did the story that you wrote about the attack on Miss Olmsted, did it appear in your Saturday edition?
Yes.
Okay. And I want to direct your attention now to Government's Exhibit 5 in front of you and also up on the screen. Is this the story that was written and published in the Columbia Daily Tribune about that attack on Saturday, April the 21st?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Did you talk to Edward Watson about the Olmsted attack?
Yes.
Okay. And when you wrote the story, did Mr. Watson review your story before it was printed?
Yes, he did.
Basically, what did your paper report about the attack, in sum?
We reported that Regina Olmsted was walking back from Columbia High School. She was walking west on Maple Street towards the Stewart Road bridge area, and that a Negro approached her and told her that there was a baby or a small child down in the ravine and he needed help.
Just let me pause for a second. Was this Negro who approached her, this man, was it someone she knew?
No.
All right, go ahead. What happened then, according to what you reported?
She went down into the ravine with him, and then he accosted her.
Okay, go ahead.
He accosted her, and she was frightened. In the meantime, a railway by the Katy Trail, the railroad there, a group of railway workers were coming on one of those little cars, you know, and so he put a handkerchief over her mouth to muffle her, if she would muffle any screams.
Did she resist the attack?
Yes.
How did she do that?
Well, she had an umbrella and she beat it over his head and the umbrella broke. But then he took a belt off and put that belt around her, and they tussled and fought, and she got cut and scratched and bruised. And in the process, though, she thought it was perhaps a robbery, and she had 50 cents, and so she threw it down on the ground, hoping that that would distract him, but it did not.
All right.
But somehow she was able to escape.
Okay. So according to your story then, printed in the newspaper, in the Tribune, was there a completed rape of Miss Olmsted, according to the story?
No.
Okay. You reported that it was an attempted attack, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, according to your story, did the attacker of Miss Olmsted give a motive for his attack?
Yes.
What did he say?
He said that his wife had been attacked by a white person and that he was going to attack a white woman in recompense.
Okay. Attacked by a white person? The wife was attacked? Or I believe your paper said he told her a white man stole my wife and I'm determined to get even and make up my mind to ruin the first white woman I got a chance at. That's what your paper reported, is it not?
Yes.
All right. Did you continue to report on and follow this story?
Yes.
When was the next article about it that you published? Was it on the following Monday, the 23rd?
Yes.
Let me direct you to Government's Exhibit 6. Is this the article that you published?
Yes.
Okay. Did you write this article?
Yes.
Did Colonel Watson read and approve it?
Yes.
What new developments did you report on Monday, the 23rd?
Well, as you see from the headline, several Negroes have been held.
Okay. And did Miss Olmsted see these men? Was she shown these men, apparently?
No, she wasn't able to completely identify anyone.
All right. So, no identification, or certainly not a complete one, by Monday. Now, I want to draw your attention to the first paragraph of Government's Exhibit 6, the article on the 23rd. And it's brought out for everyone to see up here. It says, the story of the attempted attack on Miss Regina Olmsted, which appeared exclusively in the Tribune, and so forth and so on, the jury can read it. Now, you're still reporting this as an attempted attack, correct?
Yes.
And am I right that you are reporting this as an exclusive to the Tribune?
Yes.
Okay. Now, and you emphasize that it's the Tribune's story that's responsible for numerous calls from anxious people.
Yes.
Okay. And Colonel Watson read and approved this.
Yes.
Okay. Now, when did the Tribune publish its next story on the Olmsted assault?
The next day.
All right. Let me direct your attention to. Actually, let me back up first. Yeah, no, that's right. I think. Okay. Let's talk a little bit more about Government's Exhibit 6, if we can. In this article, down towards the bottom, can you read the first sentence of the last paragraph? I may be able to aid you by bringing it up on the screen.
I can read it.
Okay, please tell us.
Circuit Court is in session and swift justice can be meted to the black brute who attacked Miss Olmsted.
And the last sentence.
The better element of colored people are as much incensed at the crime as the white people are and are openly condemning it and are saying that swift justice should be given to the guilty man when his guilt is actually proven.
Okay, and did Colonel Watson read and approve this?
Yes.
Now, when did the Tribune, I guess you already told me, the Tribune published another story on the next day, on Tuesday, April the 24th. This is Government 7.
Yes.
On that occasion, on the Tuesday, had any suspect been identified in the attack on Ms. Olmsted?
Not particularly.
All right. Now, so basically, this is a story just reporting that there aren't really any new developments in the case. Would that be fair?
Yes.
Okay. I want to draw your attention to the middle paragraph in this story. This appeared on the front page of your newspaper?
Yes, as I recall.
Okay. So this wasn't an editorial?
No.
All right. On the front page of the Tribune, let me draw your attention to the middle paragraph, where it was written, "It must be borne in mind that this is a matter about which the officers must proceed cautiously. No mistake must be made in the identity of the man, for it is a foregone conclusion that swift justice will be meted out to him." There's that swift justice again. What did you mean by swift justice?
I think the suggestion is that it's something different from a trial.
Okay. And is that suggestion made rather more explicit by the next line, which says, "Circuit Court is now in session. A trial could be had immediately, and with the community in its present state of mind, there could be one outcome. Or in the event a swifter justice is dealt to the brute, it is just as important that no mistake be made. Swifter than what?
Swifter than a trial.
So a lynching.
That's the possible conclusion you could draw.
Did Colonel Watson read and approve this story?
Yes, he did.
I want to direct your attention to Thursday, April the 26th. Did the Tribune publish a story about the rape on that day?
Yes.
Let me draw your attention to Government's Exhibit 8. Actually, my question should have been phrased a little differently. Did, on April the 26th, did the Tribune publish a story about rape?
Yes.
And what is this particular story about, the one on April 26th?
It's about two more Negroes being accused of raping two Negro girls.
All right. Two more Negroes.
Yes.
And what's that a reference to?
Well, there's some other people, I can't remember, I think it's one other person that was already been in jail for a while for
Okay.
another crime.
Now, I want to read the last sentence of the story. I don't think I've got it up here. Yes, I do. Officers have had their hands full keeping down a growing sentiment for taking some of these men from the jail and dealing with them in a way demanded by swift justice. To what does that refer?
I think it means lynching.
Now, you're the reporter, right? You wrote this.
Yes.
Of course, you wrote it with Mr. Watson's approval, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, what exactly did you know of about what the officers had to deal with? To your knowledge, have there been specific threats
There were,
on Thursday, April the 26th?
well, there were white people, white men saying things.
Okay.
That
Well, had
suggests-
any mobs gathered by Thursday, April the 26th?
No.
No. So, am I right that for the third time in 3 stories, the Tribune talks about the need for or the likelihood of swift justice? Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Did Colonel Watson read and edit and approve this story?
Yes.
Now I want to direct your attention to Friday, April the 27th. Did anything happen with respect to the Olmsted case on that day?
Yes.
What happened on the 27th, the Friday, in the afternoon?
In the afternoon, Regina Olmsted was shown by the prosecuting attorney, James Scott, and she identified him
Okay.
as the man who attacked her.
Okay. And was Mr. Scott identified publicly on Friday, April the 26th, as the person who allegedly attacked Ms. Olmsted?
Yes, though his name was not correctly identified.
And did the Tribune publish an article about this identification on that very same night?
Yes, that afternoon. We published around 5 to 5:30 each of the 6 days of the week.
All right. So is Government's Exhibit 9, is this the article that you published?
Yes.
Okay. Now, in brief, what was the evidence upon which the allegation that Mr. Scott was the attacker, on what was it based? Basically, what was the evidence?
She recognized him, and she also smelled clothing that she recognized. And there was also some questions. There was a witness who disputed his own account of where he was.
Okay, now, based on the reporting that you put out to the public, Mr. Scott, where did Mr. Scott work? according to your reporting?
He worked at the University of Missouri.
Doing what?
He was a custodian in the medical school.
Right? And according to the reporting in your newspaper, on the day of Ms. Olmstedt's attack, was Mr. Scott at work at the university?
Yes.
And had people seen him there?
Yes.
Was there some supposed gap in time when he was not actually personally seen by people?
Yes.
Okay, and about when that was that supposedly, if you recall?
Around 3 o'clock,
Till when?
about 4:15.
By the way, did Mr. Scott admit his guilt when he was accused of attacking Ms. Olmsted?
He said he was not guilty.
And yet, in your paper here, you and Mr. Watson say that his guilt is certain, right? It's in the headline.
Yes.
Even though, did you get his name right?
No, it was incorrect.
You said he was certainly guilty, you didn't even get his name right. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. Did Colonel Watson read and approve this story?
Yes, he did.
I want to draw your attention to the next day, Saturday, April the 28th. Did anything happen that morning in relationship to the Olmsted assault case?
There was an arraignment of James T.
arraignment,
Scott.
go ahead, I'm sorry.
An arraignment of James T. Scott.
All right. And with what was he charged?
Rape.
Now, that seems odd to me, given that, correct me if I'm wrong, your paper had repeatedly reported that this was an attempted and not a completed rape, right?
Yes.
Okay. Did the Tribune write a follow-up story on the Olmsted case on the Saturday the 28th?
Yes.
Direct your attention to Government's Exhibit 10. Is this the story that you wrote on that day?
Yes.
Now, did you mention in the story on that day, on Saturday, April the 28th, on your front page, did you mention the fact that Scott was actually charged with rape?
Yes.
You did?
As I recall. Oh, no, actually, we didn't.
No, you didn't, did you?
Yeah, that's right.
So unless a member of the public had been in court that morning on Saturday, April the 28th, they wouldn't know even of the possibility
Right.
that Ms. Olmsted was actually raped.
We didn't want to embarrass her or her family.
So as far as the Columbia public knew, on Saturday, April the 28th, Scott was accused at most of an attempted rape. Is that right?
Yes.
All right. Now I want to draw your attention to the last 3 paragraphs of the front page story on Saturday, April 28th. Who wrote that portion of the article? The last 3 paragraphs.
We did.
Who's we?
Me and the colonel,
Okay, you wrote them together.
essentially.
All right. Now I want you to take a look at the 3rd to last paragraph, if you would, where it says, where you and the colonel wrote, "It's generally believed that Scott is guilty of the crime, and Miss Olmstedt's identification makes certain now that he's the man who attacked her." Did you write that together with the colonel?
Yes.
Okay. And right after that, did you write, "There's been much talk of mob activity, and many men of sound judgment, who do not believe in mob law, are of the opinion that if it is positively proven that the Negro is the man who committed the crime, that the taxpayers should be saved any costs that might accrue from a trial, and that summary justice should be dealt to him."
That's more the colonel than myself.
Oh. And did you and the colonel mean by summary justice a lynching?
That's what that does mean.
Okay. Who were these men of sound judgment, by the way?
White men.
Just anonymous white men.
No.
Well, who were they?
Well, I can't say who they were. I can just tell you I heard things.
I see. Was the front page story on the Tribune, the Tribune's last word on the Scott matter on April the 28th?
No.
Okay. Did in fact an editorial appear that day on page 2?
Yes, by the American flag.
I'm sorry?
Yes, by the American flag.
Okay, right there, underneath the American flag. Who wrote that editorial?
The colonel did.
How does he compose his written work, by the way?
Longhand on paper.
Okay. Did you have any part in writing this editorial?
No, I read through it and I talked with him about it and expressed my concerns.
Okay, so well, let's look at this editorial if we can. And we'll try to move quickly through this because I think I may have an opportunity perhaps to talk with the colonel about it. But it says first, Columbia has the distinction of having in jail 3 rapists. The victims of all 3 have identified them and testified to their guilt, so there's no doubt of the justice of the claim of this town of wearing the belt for heinous and revolting crimes and so forth and so on. I want to draw your attention, however, to the last paragraph, if we could, where the colonel writes, "These brutes and the super criminals should be dealt swift justice by the courts, of course. There can be no extenuation of their crimes. Murder and homicide can be committed under stress of anger or insult, but the rapist of guilt is guilty of premeditation and malice. In fact, every degrading and criminal act. A man-killer is a mild-mannered and desirable citizen, compared with a despoiler and ravisher of innocent girlhood. And finally, an attempt at the crime above mentioned is just as heinous and culpable as an accomplishment. This trio should feel the halter draw in vindication of the law." Who wrote that?
The colonel did.
Okay. Did you offer any comment?
I asked him if he felt that was reflective of the Columbia Daily Tribune's position in the community and that would accurately convey that. And I said I felt like it didn't.
Okay, and what was his response?
He disagreed with me.
And did you say anything about whether or not Ms. Olmsted actually had or hadn't been raped, or whether you knew?
No, we didn't know. I didn't know.
Okay. Now, you told us, I believe, earlier that the publication for the schedule for the Tribune is such that the paper comes out around 5 or 5:30 each day.
Right.
Would that have been true on Saturday, April the 28th?
Yes.
Did you run the usual number of papers that night?
No.
What did you do instead?
We increased the number that we printed because we suspected we could sell more newspapers.
Okay.
We increased it by 250.
Did you sell out?
Yes.
Okay. Were you on the streets of Columbia that night, Saturday, April the 28th, 1923, after the paper was published?
Yes.
Did you see people reading it?
Yes.
Okay. What happened on the night of Saturday, April 28th, with respect to James T. Scott?
A mob of men came to the jail to seize James T. Scott. They had sledgehammers with them.
And what did they do?
They sledgehammered their way into the jail, but then they discovered they couldn't get him out of the jail because it was locked. So they got an acetylene torch so they could make their way into his cell, and they dragged him out. And then they put a rope around his neck. In the meantime, the jailer, Dan Wilson, had said that they couldn't do that, but they did it anyway. And he said he would kill them if it came through where he lived. And they said, okay, we won't come through where you live. And they went around and got the acetylene torch and went on another way.
Okay.
And they took him from the jail.
Okay. And you're able to tell us all this how? How do you know?
I saw it.
Did anybody try to stop these people going into the jail?
No.
Were any of them wearing masks?
I can't really say.
You can't say?
No.
You watched them? How long did this take, Mr. Edwards?
A while.
It took an hour and a half, did it not?
That's probably correct.
And you watched the entire time, did you not?
Yes.
And you can't tell me whether they were masked?
Not really.
I see. Did anybody, well, let's start again with the moment when Mr. Scott is finally taken out of the jail. Where's the mob taken?
They took him down to the Stewart Road Bridge.
And what happened there?
They decided they needed a different kind of rope.
All right. And then what happened?
Somebody tossed him off the bridge after they found a different kind of rope.
Did Mr. Scott, did anybody try to stop the mob, by the way?
Not that I could see.
Nobody said anything?
Not that I heard. There were two people there, actually.
Who?
The father of Regina Olmsted, Mr. Herman Olmsted, who's a language professor at the University of Missouri, and then another fella, reporter from the newspaper, the other newspaper in town, the Columbia Missourian.
And did those two men speak out to try to stop the mob from hanging Mr. Scott?
They did.
Did Mr. Scott say anything before he was hung?
Yes, he did.
What did he say?
He said, I know I'm going to die, but I'm innocent.
All right. Was Mr. Watson at the bridge?
I can't really say. He was somewhere near there, though, as far as I remember.
So several people addressed the mob and tried to stop the hanging. Did you?
No,
Did Mr. Watson?
not that I know of.
Who put the rope around Scott's neck?
I don't know.
Who threw him off the bridge?
I don't know.
So you've been reporting on this story all week. You anticipated a lynching would happen. You went to watch it happen. You saw nothing. You were unable to recognize anyone.
It was very
You said
dark.
nothing to stop it. And you can't today tell us the identity of a single person who was in the mob. Is that right?
It's very dark.
It was a full moon that night, was it not, Mr. Edwards?
But it's still dark.
Oh, one last thing. After the lynching, was there an investigation of the lynching conducted by my office?
Yes, sir.
And were a number of people charged in connection with this lynching, including particularly George Barkwell?
Yes.
And was there a trial of George Barkwell?
Yes.
Occurred just this last summer in August, did it not?
Yes.
Did you testify at that trial?
Yes.
For whom?
The defense.
I have no further questions.
Cross.
Sir, let's talk about the newspaper first. Now, there are two main newspapers now in Columbia, aren't there?
Yes.
All right, now there's that new student experiment with that school of journalism where they're bringing people in from all over to teach a new way of doing newspapers, right?
That's correct.
And if I'm understanding correctly, their idea is not so much to be the voice of the community, but to be this kind of neutral, removed, detached truth finder who's not so tied into the community. Is that right?
Perhaps.
All right. But your newspaper, it's staffed by members of the community. Queenie Smith, I mean, half of us have played cards with her. She's an established member of the community, isn't she?
Yes.
All right. So is it fair to say that your newspaper is more reflective of our community and what people are talking about?
Yes.
All right. And so when you're not running stories off the wire, when you're running local stories, you're talking about the community you live in and where you go to church and where you got married and where you plan to stay until the day you die. Isn't that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, the prosecutor was asking you some questions there about anonymous people who made comments to you about wanting to see a man lynched, the guilty man lynched. Do you remember talking to the prosecutor about that a minute ago?
Yes.
Now, is it fair to say that as a journalist in this community, you let people know when they're on the record and when they're off the record.
Yes.
And that's how you know about things that are going on, and that's how you preserve your ability to talk to people around the community. Isn't that right?
Yes.
Okay. So when you say that you are not at liberty to disclose who was saying these things, isn't that because they weren't telling you of a plan to murder somebody? They were just venting their sentiment, and you understood that that was not something for on-the-record publication. Isn't that right?
Yes.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about these articles. Let's go back to the very first article, published on Saturday, April the 21st. Now, if I remember correctly, and it's reflected in this article, Miss Olmstead was attacked sometime between 2 and 3 o'clock on Friday afternoon. Is that right?
Yes.
Now, is it fair to say that the reporting of a school-aged child being attacked as she walked home from school, that was something rather distressing to the members of our community?
Yes.
All right, especially because unless you have one of them new fancy cars or wealthy enough to have a carriage, we all depend on our children to be able to safely walk home from school while we're working, isn't it?
Yes.
All right, so this was seen as an immediate and present threat to the safety of all of our children until this person was discovered, wasn't it?
Yes.
Now, in those initial articles, the colonel was part of all of that journalistic process, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
So on Monday, the April 23rd, when there's this line, the public should withhold judgment and give the officers an opportunity to fathom this beastly crime, the colonel approved that language.
Yes.
So the colonel was cautioning people, be patient. Wait for the police to get this right, even though we all want somebody immediately taken in to protect our children. Is that correct?
That is correct.
When he said swift justice should be given to the guilty man, he also conditioned it by saying when his guilt is actually proven. Correct?
Yes.
Now, we go to Tuesday, the April the 24th. Again, wasn't there language in your paper approved by the colonel saying we must proceed cautiously? No mistake must be made in the identity of the man. And then the prosecutor brought this next clause up, for it is a foregone conclusion that swift justice will be meted out to him. Isn't that right?
Yes.
All right. But he said circuit court is now in session and a trial could be had immediately. Isn't that what everybody wanted, an immediate trial to resolve this?
Yes.
Now, sir, I hate to touch on a somewhat sensitive issue, but is it fair to say that racial relations were somewhat implicated by this crime?
Yes.
So wasn't it in the best interests of both the white and the Negro community to immediately resolve who had done this attack so that there would not be any lingering concerns or sentiments between the two populations?
Yes.
I mean, do you agree with my assessment of the situation, sir?
Yes.
And is that what you were hearing everywhere you went about the community?
Yes.
A great deal of fear and concern and anxiousness and desire to find out who this rotten apple was. Let's move forward to April the 27th. Now, the headline reads, Miss Olmstead identifies Negro. Do you remember writing that, sir?
Yes.
All right, now there's this talk about how she did her identification process. There's this line that when she saw him, she exclaimed, "Oh, those are his eyes. Don't let him come any nearer," and they had to take him away because she became so upset. Isn't that from that article?
Yes.
All right. Now, if you say here, several Negroes were brought into the office, but she said none of them were the man. At last, Scott was brought in, and she immediately recognized his voice without seeing him. Do you remember that part?
Yes.
And then do you remember her mentioning a peculiar odor, and in fact, one that was tied to his profession in dealing with formaldehyde in animals?
Right.
All right. And she said, "I can see him when I smell him." Right. So didn't you make clear that it was not that she saw a Negro and therefore he's the rapist? She smelled the identifying specific odor particular to the individual who attempted to attack her, and she provided that information to police who confirmed it with several different identification procedures where she said no first to other Negro men before she said that's the man.
Yes.
Now, when you got those details from the police, let's talk just for a second here about the police. What sort of police department do we have here in our city in Columbia? Do we have a professional modern department?
It's a good one.
Right. In your experience, are they individuals who are concerned with getting the right person and dotting their I's and crossing their T's and being thorough and deliberate in their investigative process?
Yes.
Now, we talked about that article about several men being initially held. Is it fair to say that there was enormous pressure on the police to initially resolve that case and find out who the attacker was?
Yes.
But did they just grab the first Negro man and then say, this is it, and run with it? Or did they take the time and resist that pressure to get details that they thought confirmed the identity of the attacker?
They took some time.
Okay. Let's talk about that article on the 28th. Now, you said you attended the arraignment.
Yes, I did.
Now, at the arraignment, the prosecutor actually used the word rape, didn't he?
Yes.
And the only reason you didn't print that is you thought that was a little confusing with what had been said earlier, and until you were 100% certain, you were a little confused yourself about which word to use, and so you were playing it cautious.
Yes, and also protecting the family.
I understand. Now, that article that came out that day, Girl Identifies Negro Assailant, isn't it true that once again the colonel, the language that he approved is, if it is positively proven that the Negro is the man who committed the crime, then steps should be taken. That was his language, right?
Yes.
And he said, public opinion has been stretched to a breaking point. Now, was that the colonel's opinion had been stretched to a breaking point? Or in your honest and sincere impression of the mood of the public that morning, is it not that the public's emotions had been stretched to the breaking point?
Yes, the public's emotion.
Now, during this 7, 8, 9, 10-day time period, were people just letting their kids walk to and from school casually, like they normally would?
No.
Were people locking doors and windows for the first time?
Yes.
Was there a sense of fear and concern that people might be attacked or their family might be subjected to degradation and abuse at any moment until we knew with certainty who had done this?
Yes.
Is it fair to say that, like any population, feeling an oppressive fear, that moods were running high?
Yes.
Did the colonel lead that mood, or was he reflective of that mood, in your opinion?
That's a tricky question. But I would say, like many newspapers, it reflects the community.
Okay, now we've been calling him the colonel, but is he in fact able to give orders to any of the members of the people who went to the jail that so far as you know?
It's an honorific term.
Okay, so you don't have to know who was at the jail to know that this was nobody subject to his orders or directives.
Correct.
Has he written other articles that people have felt free to disagree with here in the community?
Very much so.
Okay, and from time to time, have you and the colonel been taken to task for saying things that other people didn't agree with?
Quite often.
Have you ever been in a cafe and somebody's come up and just told you, well, the colonel's off this time. He didn't get it right.
Every now and then.
Okay. In that article, published on Saturday, April 28th, did not the colonel approve language that said, people should be warned to let the law take its course?
Yes.
Now, I noticed, and the prosecutor brought up this part about vindication of the law and feeling the noose, or the halter draw. Isn't it true that part of the article talks about extenuation and mitigation? That's what that's talking about, right? Extenuation and mitigation.
Yes.
Doesn't that tie into an article earlier in the week where the colonel wrote that after the right man has been properly convicted and sentenced for his crimes, people should guard against undue sensitivity of seeking commutation because we should just trust to the law and the dictates of the law and its outcome?
I believe that's correct.
So can't this be read to be referring back to that idea of like, we just got to trust justice and we can't be soft-hearted about this?
Yes.
Now, I've only been talking about this case, but the prosecutor brought up several others. Can you ever remember a time in your entire career when there was such a feeling of criminal threat in our community as was existing that week with several reported sexual assaults in short order?
No, I can't recall any other time.
And that had actually led to national attention of our community, hadn't it?
Yes.
Now, before the Saturday article came out, hadn't you already heard rumors of people coming into town and stuff because they thought there might be mob activity or a mob response?
Yes.
And when the prosecutor brought this up, these earlier articles talking about people taking things into their own hands, jumping the gun on the law, that was before people had been told the identity for sure of the assailant, right?
Yes.
Is there any doubt in your mind that if the police, as per the colonel, had not been very careful about identifying who somebody was ahead of time, and they had just identified a suspect, they had just said, so-and-so, Mr. Smith is the suspect, is there any doubt that he would have had something happen to him from members of the community before law enforcement would get to his door? I guess what I'm saying is, it was absolutely required that law enforcement take this man into custody first, right? Whoever the assailant was.
Yes.
Okay. And that is what those earlier articles were referring to.
Yes.
Now, on the night that this whole mob activity took place, have you been to the jail before?
Yes.
Up until that night, would you have described the jail as a very secure facility?
Yes.
Even when the mob started to get angry and were shouting and stuff, did you for a minute think they would be able to just go into the jail and pull him out and take him off to a bridge to hang him?
No.
Right. So you were expecting some sort of mob response or angry demonstration, but you still didn't expect them to be able to get in and take him out and lynch him.
No.
That was not foreseeable.
No.
All right. Now, at any time that night, that Saturday, did you see the colonel standing up in front of the crowd cheering or egging them on?
No.
Did you hear him addressing the crowd and encouraging them to hang this individual?
No.
Is the colonel a wallflower who would shelter behind a crowd if he had a strong opinion of what he wanted a crowd to do?
No.
Fairly safe to say he's a strong personality, and if he wanted something, he would just speak openly about it.
Yes.
And that's his reputation in town. He'll say what he's thinking, and he'll say what other people are thinking.
Yes.
Now, you are aware of the person who was put on trial last year for the actual hanging of the alleged assailant, correct?
Yes, I am.
Have you ever seen that individual in the presence of the colonel? Have you ever seen the two of them together?
No.
Right. Do they come from the same social group?
I don't think so.
Okay. Have you in any way ever believed that individual was working at the colonel's behest?
No.
Right. And is it fair to say, I may be using a little bit of hyperbolic language here, but hell, half the town was there that night. Not involved in the hanging itself, but just there, right?
Just to watch.
Right. There were a lot of people there.
Yes.
So mere presence there doesn't make you guilty any more than it makes anybody else guilty.
That's correct.
When Chief Rowland told you who he believed the assailant to be, did he couch it in any cautionary tones? Did he say, well, we think it might be this guy, or did he say, we got it?
No, he wasn't certain.
Pardon me?
He wasn't certain.
He was uncertain?
Yeah, he was not certain. At
He-
what point are you asking me
I'm saying
that this
on
conversation happened?
Friday and Saturday, the day before and the day of the hanging,
Right.
when the chief said, our young victim has identified the assailant,
Yeah.
did he tell you, well, we think maybe she's identified him, or did he say, no, she's fingered the guy?
Well, she said she's identified who she thought committed the crime.
Okay. And he's the one who provided you all these confirming details about her horror when she saw his eyes and the distinctive smell and the sound of his voice and everything else. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Just a moment. Is there anything else you need to bring out? Nothing further, Your Honor.
Redirect.
No redirect, Your Honor.
Finally excused state.
Please.
Finally excused defense.
Yes.
You're finally excused. You may step down. Call your next witness, state.
Your Honor, the state calls Charles Nutter.
Go fast.
Please step forward, raise your right hand, and be sworn. You solemnly swear the testimony you now give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Take the stand. State your name for the reporter.
Charles Nutter.
Counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Nutter, would you go ahead and introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Charles Nutter.
And what do you do, Mr. Nutter?
I'm a reporter with the Columbia Evening Missourian.
Now, this may seem like an odd question, but what is the Missourian?
It's a newspaper here in Columbia.
And are you originally from Columbia?
No, originally Nebraska.
Then how did you come to live here?
My father was a farmer, but I always wanted to be a writer. When I was 16, moved to Columbia and started working odd jobs until I could pay tuition at the journalism school.
When did you begin working for the Missourian?
As soon as my classes started at the school.
Now, Mr. Nutter, are you familiar with what happened to Mr. James Scott?
I am.
How did you first become aware of that situation?
I was assigned to work the crime beat at the paper. That was the same week that Miss Regina Almstead accused a black man of assaulting her. And later in that week, James Scott was accused of being that man.
Did you report on this case?
Yes, I did.
What was the first thing that you did in investigating the case?
I went to Chief Rowland's office. While I was going there, I saw Mr. Edwards leave, and I asked him what was up. And he said he had a big story, but he wouldn't tell me anything else. So I went to the chief, and I asked him, and he said that Miss Almstead had been assaulted.
Did he tell you anything else about the attack?
Yeah, he said the man had very distinctive facial hair, like a Charlie Chaplin mustache. But then immediately he told me not to put that in the paper because the suspect could shave the evidence off, as he put it.
Did you write anything about this case in the Missourian?
We reported that the assault had happened that night.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Granted.
I am presenting the witness with a package of exhibits, specifically government's exhibits 13 through 20.
Any objection? Those
No, Your Honor.
additional exhibits? No objection. Admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. So, what was the first thing that you wrote about in the Missourian?
On Saturday, April 21st, we wrote that Negro attacks a white girl.
Is this the article that you're speaking of?
Yes.
Okay. Was the attack investigated by the police?
Yes, it was.
Did you continue to report about that investigation as it went ongoing?
Yes, throughout the week.
Did you write anything on Monday the 23rd?
Yes, I did.
Is government's exhibit 14 that article?
Yes, it is.
How about on Tuesday the 24th? Did you write anything that day?
I did.
Is that reflected in government's exhibit 15?
Yes, it is.
Did you write anything on Wednesday or Thursday of that week?
I did not.
How about on Friday the 27th?
Yes, I did.
Is that indicated here in government's exhibit 16?
It is.
Now, Mr. Nutter, just generally, how would you describe, in your opinion, the feeling of the community during that week?
People were very restless. There was a lot of rumors flying around about people taking the law into their own hands, especially after 2 Negro girls were attacked by 2 Negro men. There was talk that they were getting out of hand, the Negroes were getting out of hand, that no woman was safe, and that something needed to be done.
Now, did the other newspaper in town, the Tribune, also write about this case?
Yes.
Is the Tribune well read in the community?
Yes, both newspapers actually are read rather widely. They're the only 2 news sources in town.
Do you read the Tribune?
I do.
Did you read it during the week in question?
Yes.
What did you think of their coverage as a fellow journalist?
I thought it was fine up until Tuesday, the article that day was kind of set me back.
If you would just take the next page there, I believe you have what's already been admitted as Government's Exhibit 7. Is that the article from the Tribune on Tuesday, April 24th?
Yes, it is.
What about this article bothered you?
This justice about swift passage, or swift justice, sorry.
Would you go ahead and read that passage?
No mistake must be made in the identity of the man, for it is a foregone conclusion that swift justice will be meted out to him. Circuit Court is now in session. A trial could be had immediately, and with the community in its present frame of mind, there could be but one outcome, or in the event a swifter justice is dealt to the brute. It is just as important that no mistake be made.
Now, when you read that the first time, what did you conclude that the author meant?
There's only one thing I thought it could be: a lynching.
Throughout that week when you were writing for the Missourian, did you ever use the word swift justice?
Absolutely not.
Now, did you hear of any other folks' reactions in the community regarding this article?
I heard lots of people use that phrase, swift justice. The Tribune is a well-respected institution in this town, and when they started using that kind of language, it gave other people the right, basically, to discuss that more openly.
What, if anything, did you do after reading this article from the Tribune?
Well, I was rather confused about it, so I went and talked to my professors, and I asked them, how should we report on rumors like this? And they said, we don't. We only report facts. We don't report rumors. So, unlike the Tribune, we just stuck to straight reporting.
What do you mean by straight reporting?
We don't take a side in our stories. We don't inject any opinion into them.
Did you speak with anyone else about the Tuesday Tribune article?
Just Mr. Edwards, very briefly. All he said was that a community newspaper like that should reflect the sentiment of the community.
And I want to move forward a little bit to the day of the lynching. This is Saturday, April 28th. What were you doing on that day?
I was just walking around town. I saw that a lot of people were drunk, pretty obviously. Negroes were going about their day, and these people would start harassing them. It was really ugly.
Did you publish anything in the Missourian on that day?
Yes, we reported that Mr. Scott had been charged.
Is that reflected here in Government's Exhibit 17?
Yes, it is.
Did the Tribune publish anything on that day?
Yes, they did.
Now, Mr. Nutter, I believe I've provided you a copy of that article. It should be Government's Exhibit 10. It's the next one in your file. Do you see it?
I do.
I want to draw your attention to a few passages, specifically the men of sound judgment passage. When you read that, what did you interpret it to mean?
It seemed like he was trying to make the argument that a lynching would be understandable given the circumstances. If he wasn't explicitly advocating for it, he was at least trying to create an atmosphere where it would be justifiable.
Now, how about in Mr. Watson's editorial, which should be the next page, where he speaks of letting the halter draw? What did you interpret that to mean?
Well, a halter is a strap, used with a horse. You put it around his head so you can control it. It seemed to me he was making the argument that the situation needed to be controlled and that Mr. Scott needed to be made an example of.
And how did you assume that was going to be done?
You could only assume one way, with a lynching.
Where were you on the evening of Saturday the 28th?
I heard that people were starting to gather at the jail where Mr. Scott was being held, so I went down there with a notebook.
How big would you estimate the crowd was?
About 2,000 people.
And what was this crowd doing?
A few people went into the jail with tools, and a while later, someone with an acetylene torch also went in there. I could only assume that they were trying to, break into Mr. Scott's cell.
So you're seeing them go into the jail. What happened next?
I saw these men bring out Mr. Scott with a noose around his neck.
What did they do to Mr. Scott, if anything?
They started taking him to Stewart's Bridge, and a few times he stumbled and they just dragged him by the noose around his neck, just dragged him on the ground.
Did you follow the mob to Stewart's Bridge?
I did.
And what did you hear, if anything, while you were walking?
People were yelling. I heard shouts of hang him and hang the nigger.
What happened once the mob reached the bridge?
Professor Olmsted, the victim's father, showed up and pleaded with the mob to just let the courts take care of it. But someone shouted, if you don't leave, we're going to lynch you too, and Professor Olmsted left after that.
What happened next?
I was really close to Mr. Scott, and he turned to me and he said, I'm innocent, I swear it, but I have no chance. He was really resigned to his fate.
Did you try anything at all to help him?
I tried to say something to the mob to make them stop, but no one would listen to me.
So what happened to Mr. Scott after that?
He started to pray. He kept saying over and over, I'm an innocent man. But then the call went out for a longer piece of rope. And then a man, Mr. Barkwell, emerged from the crowd with this longer rope, tied a noose around Mr. Scott's neck, and then pushed him off the bridge. And as he fell, Mr. Scott said, I'm an innocent man. And I heard the crack of his neck when it broke. It's just a sound I'll never forget.
Did anything happen on that bridge after that?
No, this calm kind of came over the crowd, and they just dispersed, went about their business.
Now, I want to ask you just a few last questions about what occurred after the lynching. Did you end up reporting about that night in the Missourian?
I did. I wrote a pretty lengthy article about it the Monday after.
Is that reflected here in Government's Exhibit 19?
Yes, it is.
And is it also reflected in these photographs of the door to the cell?
Yes, it is.
And how about in Government's Exhibit number 20? Is that an editorial that was published that day?
Yes, it is.
In that article, first of all, did you write that article?
I did.
And in that article, did you write mob law is never justified?
I did.
Why did you write that?
Because it's true. Even the victim's father tried to dissuade the mob from lynching this man. The courts should have handled it.
Did you continue reporting on the case after these articles?
Yes, we covered the trial of Mr. Barkwell. The paper also started publishing excerpts of what other papers were saying about the lynching and about the mob mentality that descended on Columbia, and they were all very critical.
Was anyone tried for the murder of Mr. Scott?
No.
No one was tried?
Excuse me, Mr. Barkwell was.
And did you report on that trial?
Yes, I did.
Did you testify in that trial?
I did.
And what was the result of that trial?
Mr. Barkwell was acquitted. The jury only deliberated for 11 minutes.
And was anyone ever convicted of Mr. Scott's murder?
No.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Cross.
Now, you said that as a journalist, you stick to the facts and you don't engage in speculation or rumors. Is that correct?
Yes.
But you just testified about a lot of speculation and guesswork as to what you think different things meant. Do you feel comfortable doing that?
What did I speculate about?
Well, you said, well, it could only be interpreted this way, or from that I took it to mean that he meant this, or I felt people might react to that. I mean, that's speculative, right? You're not reporting on the facts of how other people are thinking. You're telling us what you guessed other people would be thinking or feeling.
That's my feelings today, looking back on it.
Okay. Well, you said in retrospect, there's only one way to interpret the phrase "feel the halter draw," and that is that he was encouraging a lynching. Is that correct?
Yes.
I'm going to read you a paragraph. I want to ask if you still stand by that statement. These brutes and super criminals should be dealt swift justice by the courts, of course. There can be no extenuation of their crimes. Murder and homicide can be committed under stress of anger or insult, but the rapist is guilty of premeditation and malice. In fact, every degrading and criminal act, a man killer is a mild-mannered and desirable citizen compared with a despoiler and ravisher of innocent girlhood, and an attempt at the crime above mentioned is just as heinous and culpable as an accomplishment. This trio should feel the halter draw in vindication of the law. Now, that was the actual text of that article that evening on Saturday, hours before the lynching, right?
Yes.
And you're saying the only way to interpret that is he's saying, don't rely on the courts, let's have a mob.
Yes.
So that word extenuation, that's a discussion you heard from the mob that night. Was there extenuation? Is there mitigation? That's how the mob talks?
I heard nothing about
Did you hear people
extenuation.
shouting, vindication of the law, as they took him down to hang him?
I did not.
Okay. Did you hear them talking, by the courts, of course, as they took him down to hang him?
I did not.
Now, this phrase, swift justice by the courts, is that not, in fact, the exact language that the judge used to address the mob at the jail? He said, I promise you swift justice by the courts if you will just entrust us the process of law.
He did.
All right, so those are the exact same words of the judge.
Yes.
So was the judge telling people to go lynch this man?
That's not the way I interpreted it. It sounded like
So
he
the
was...
exact same words, you're just...
Objection, Your Honor. The
The
witness must be
objection will
allowed to
be
answer the
sustained.
question.
Let him finish
All
this.
right.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, go ahead.
He was asking people to let the courts do it, not mob justice. There's a difference.
Okay. Now, even before Scott's name was released, you had heard people talking about mob violence.
Yes.
And you agree that you heard even substantial members in the town talking about some pretty wild stuff.
Yes.
Who were those substantial members of the town that you heard saying wild stuff?
Well-to-do folk around town.
You don't want to tell us their names?
Well-to-do folk around town.
Okay, so you do, in fact, as a journalist, sometimes report the mood or the general discussions of the community without attributing it to specific individuals. It's a filter.
Like I said, we didn't report on the rumors.
But you heard those well-to-do people saying this sort of stuff.
Yes.
So when the Colonel published that even ordinarily careful and prudent people are talking about these sort of things, he didn't make that up. He was accurately reporting what everybody was hearing, just not what you guys reported, but what everybody was hearing.
I can't speak for him.
Okay, on Saturday, the day that Mr. Scott was hung, do you remember having a visit from an old college friend?
I do.
All right, that's Francis Misselvitz, is that his name?
Yes.
Does he live here in Columbia?
No.
Where does he live?
St. Louis.
All right, so he's a reporter over in St. Louis, right?
Yes.
Didn't he catch the train and come over here Saturday morning?
He did.
All right, and didn't he tell you the reason I came over is because I heard that Columbia's getting out of control and there might be a lynching or the mob might take matters into their own hands?
He heard rumors about a possible lynching, yes.
And that Saturday article by the Colonel, that hadn't come out yet, had it?
No.
All right, and on Saturday, before that article came out, didn't you see, hear, and witness assaults taking place around town? I mean, Negro men who are going about their business, have nothing to do with any attack on anybody, were being harassed and assaulted.
Yes.
All right, and it was escalating. That mood around town was escalating, wasn't it?
Yes.
All right. So, certainly not speaking in regards to a lynching, but speaking in regards to the way the judge said the sentence, swift justice, there was some necessity that there be some sort of swift justice to put this matter to bed before things got out of control. I mean, people were going to be hurt. Innocent men walking around town are going to be hurt.
Objection, Your Honor. Once again,
Weren't they?
may the witness answer the questions.
The objection will be sustained. You're arguing with the witness now, counsel. Ask a question, witness, answer the question.
Can you repeat the question?
In your opinion, innocent men were going to be hurt if this was not somehow resolved quickly and to everybody's satisfaction that the person who was attacking people in the community had been identified and stopped.
Coming from a judge, the term swift justice has a different connotation. When a judge says it, you think it's going to be swift justice in the courtroom.
Let's talk. When you were at the jail when people were trying to break in, right?
Yes,
Hundreds of people were there.
I said 2,000.
So it grew over time, up to 2,000 people?
When I was there was about 2,000
Okay.
people.
Did you at any time see the colonel there encouraging or egging on the crowd?
I did not.
Did you hear, though, many people in the crowd saying things like, hang him, or take him down, or get him out of here, let's go hang him up, string him up? Did you hear lots of people saying those sorts of things?
I did.
Can you identify any of those people?
I identified Mr. Barkwell.
Okay. Anybody else? Or was it just generally coming from this crowd, and you couldn't just say it's those three troublemakers over there, it's the whole crowd kind of expressing a mood?
I couldn't identify who was saying those specific things, no.
So is it fair to say it was kind of the whole crowd expressing a mood?
Yes.
I want to talk about a couple of articles that came out in the Columbia Daily Tribune that week. Now, I take it from your negative comments about the Daily Tribune that you were reading their articles that week. Is that correct?
Yes.
But several of their articles talk about public opinion being stretched to the breaking point, but also talk about opinion within the Negro community. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And in fact, talk about the need to make sure that the specific individual is found, not just the Negro community in general.
Yes.
Now, in contrast to the Colonel's articles talking about the need to find the specific Negro who's responsible for these acts, didn't you hear many people around town just saying words to the effect of these Negroes are getting out of control and they need to be put back in their place?
I heard people express that, yes.
Okay. So in fact, some of the Colonel's opinions expressed in these articles were actually much more reserved and cautious than the general mood that you were hearing around town.
Hard for me to quantify.
But he was saying we need to focus on the specific individual, and you were hearing lots of people say it's that whole community.
Yes.
Now, the Colonel's articles talked about the mood in the Negro community. Did you go interview anybody in the Negro community or report on the mood in the Negro community at all?
I did not, but I spoke with Mr. Scott.
Okay. The Colonel reported that the mood in the Negro community was just as incensed and angry as in the white community, if perhaps for a little bit different reasons. You know, their concern being somebody has brought lots of very negative attention on our whole community, and until that individual is found, we're all at risk. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Right. Do you disagree with his assessment of the mood in both communities? Do you disagree with his assessment?
I do not.
Okay. Anything else? Nothing further, Your Honor.
Redirect.
No redirect, Your Honor, but may I approach the bench briefly to fix the crest on your desk?
My crest fell.
Indeed. Perhaps the city needs more money in the court.
I'm crestfallen. Finally excused.
He may finally be excused.
Finally excused. You may step down, sir. Call your next witness, State.
Your Honor, the state calls Mrs. Gertrude Carter Scott.
Please raise your right hand and be sworn. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you now give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes. Please take the stand. Please state your name for the reporter.
My name is Gertrude Carter Scott.
Counsel?
Mrs. Scott, would you go ahead and introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Gertrude Carter Scott.
And where do you live, Mrs. Scott?
I live at 501 3rd Street.
Were you born and raised in Columbia?
Yes, I was. I went to elementary school and secondary school here.
And are you currently employed?
Yes, I am a first and second grade teacher at Frederick Douglass School.
What education did you receive to become a teacher?
After high school, I went to Lincoln Institute, which is now Lincoln University, and I graduated from there.
Now, Mrs. Scott, we're going to have to discuss some of the things involving your husband tonight. And if you have any issues or if you need to take a moment, please let me know and we will take some time. But first and foremost, how did you meet Mr. James Scott?
I met Scotty one day after a church function. Our parents were friends, and so my parents introduced me to him.
What did you know about Mr. Scott at the time when you met him?
I knew that he had just moved from Chicago. He was a widower with 3 children. They were still in Chicago. He also served in the Army, and he worked at the University Medical Building.
How would you describe Mr. Scott?
Scotty was such a kind and courteous man. I thought he was very attractive. My parents were impressed that he worked at the university. He was great.
You said that he was rather attractive. What did he look like?
He was strong and wiry. He didn't have any formal education, but he was well-spoken, well-traveled, dressed really well and neat.
When did you marry Mr. Scott?
We married about a year after we met in 1921.
All right, now, Mrs. Scott, I'm going to start asking a few questions about the week in question tonight. What happened, if anything, on Saturday, April 21st?
On April 21st, Scotty and I went to church, which is what we normally did on Sundays. After church, we read the Missourian. The Missourian was put out by the university, and so he was really loyal to the university. And that's where we read about the white girl being attacked.
Do you read the newspaper every day?
Yes.
Is that how you get your news?
Yes.
What was your reaction when you read that article?
I was immediately frightened. I grew up in Columbia, and so I knew what it was like to be a black man in Columbia. Scotty, he didn't grow up here, and so he didn't understand that how cruel white people can be, how, if something happened to a white woman, they automatically decide that it's a Negro man that did it, as though black women aren't enough for their women.
Did anything else happen that day, Saturday the 21st?
Yes. After church, after we read the paper, Scotty was polishing his car, and that's when the police came.
What did they say when they arrived?
They asked him a few questions, and then they arrested him.
What was your reaction to that?
I was so scared. I knew this would happen. Scotty believed that everything would be okay, but I knew that something like this would happen.
What did you do following Mr. Scott's arrest?
I went and hired a lawyer.
Did the lawyer ask you for any payment?
Yes, I actually had to sell Scotty's prized possession in order to pay for the lawyer. He had spent over a year's salary buying his car, and I had to sell it.
What kind of car was it?
It was a Hutmobile.
Mrs. Scott, if I showed you a picture of the Hutmobile, would you be able to recognize it for me?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
I'm showing the witness what's been marked as government's exhibit number 12.
Any objection to 12?
No objection, Your Honor.
Same will be admitted.
Mrs. Scott, what have I just handed you?
A picture of Scotty's Hutmobile.
And you said that you gave this as part of payment for the attorney, correct?
Yes, yes.
Mrs. Scott, did you do anything else following the arrest besides go and get a lawyer?
Yes, I actually went to the courthouse where I tried to talk to somebody, but it was just difficult to talk to anybody. Finally, I got a hold of the prosecutor there and spoke with him and told him that Scotty couldn't have been the one to do it because he was at work. We both were at work, but he didn't believe me.
Mrs. Scott, what did you feel the reaction and the feeling in the community was at that time?
There was so much tension. There were rumors about lynching Negroes, and honestly, blacks decided that we wanted to lay low because we were afraid of violence against us.
Now, Mrs. Scott, I'm going to move forward to Saturday, the 28th. What's the first thing you remember about that day?
I remember my friend coming over and telling me that she had read that Scotty had been charged with the attack of the young girl.
And where had she read that?
She read that in the Tribune, the Daily Tribune.
Was there anything else in the Tribune that day on the 28th that you read?
Yes. It said that men of sound judgment should spare the county the expense of a trial.
What was your reaction to that?
I just couldn't take it. I lost it. I became hysterical.
Mrs. Scott, when did you learn what happened to your husband at Stewart Bridge?
Later on that night, on the 28th, around 1 o'clock in the morning, my dad came over and he told me that he watched a mob break Scotty out of jail and take him to Stewart Bridge and hung him.
Mrs. Scott, were you able to have a funeral for your husband?
No. His body was so mutilated. His neck was snapped. His head was barely hanging on. That's the last image I saw of him.
How has your life changed since Mr. Scott was killed?
Well, Scotty was my best friend. We'd only been married 2 years before he died, and we had planned to have children, and we can't do that anymore. It's changed drastically.
Mrs. Scott, do you believe your husband assaulted Regina Olmsted?
Absolutely not. There's no way. Scotty was not that kind of man.
Do you have any other reasons to believe that he wouldn't do this?
Well, my dad said that he heard that Ollie Watson confessed to her attack.
Who is Ollie Watson?
Ollie Watson's just a guy that was in jail around the same time that Scotty was in jail.
Do you know if the police ever investigated Mr. Watson?
Yes, I know they spoke to the girl about him, but I don't know of her response.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Cross.
Your Honor,
Counsel,
may I please the court?
you may.
Ms. Scott, let me begin by expressing my deepest condolences for your horrific loss. Now, Ms. Scott, you said that you've lived in Columbia your entire life,
Yes,
so you know the city well,
yes,
you know the community well.
yes,
You work here now, you identify well with the community.
yes,
You know the Negro community in Columbia very well.
yes, I did.
You know the white community in Columbia.
Yes.
Ms. Scott, you're going to need to speak up. If you'd move toward the microphone,
Yes.
please. Thank you.
You knew better than your husband what could happen after the Olmsted case was announced.
Yes,
You said that the city was buzzing even before the newspaper came out about this case.
yes, I did.
And you were worried from day one about what could happen to your husband or any black man in the Columbia community.
I was.
There was tension building up the entire week.
Yes,
The people were becoming anxious as more facts came out.
yes,
There was certainly an energy in the community at that time that was palpable.
yes,
You said in your testimony that you went to the courthouse the day of your husband's lynching.
yes, I did.
You were there in the morning, correct?
Yes,
When you went to that courthouse, there were already people standing outside, gathering up, waiting.
yes, there were.
You weren't able to speak to your husband that day.
No, I was not.
Mrs. Scott, with everything that you've told us about how well you know this community and how well you know the city of Columbia, that mob did not need Mr. Watson's newspaper to do what they did to your husband that night.
No, I don't think so.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Redirect.
No redirect, Your Honor.
Finally excused.
She may be. Thank you.
Finally excused. Thank you, ma'am. You may step down. Call your next witness.
State of Missouri calls George Barkwell.
Please raise your right hand and be sworn. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you now give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please take the stand. Please state your name for the reporter.
My name is George Barkwell.
And where were you born?
I was born right here in Boone County.
How old are you, sir?
I'm 49 years old.
And where are you educated?
I went to high school here in Boone County, and that's about it.
Do you own a business here in town?
That's right. Barkwell's Coal and Feed off Prospect.
All right. You ever been involved in politics here in town?
I was the city councilor for a term or two, yeah.
All right. Now, it was suggested earlier by defense counsel that perhaps you and the defendant, Mr. Watson, Colonel Watson, had never met. Is that true?
I've seen him around the town a time or two. I also order out ads in the man's paper, and I've done business with him on occasion or two.
And you were city councilman for 2 terms, right?
Indeed, I was.
And so did you deal with him as a publicly elected official in this town?
Naturally, I did.
All right. Now, when did you first hear of the attack on Regina Olmsted?
That was about a week before Scott was hung on a Saturday, I believe it was.
How did you find out?
Well, I only heard whispers at first. People came into my shop and they were talking about it. We didn't know much, but we knew that there'd been a girl who'd been attacked under the old Stewart's Bridge.
How did you find out the details?
We didn't find out the details until later on, whenever it was published in the paper. I believe it was maybe on Tuesday, later that week.
Might it have been as early as Saturday?
It perhaps might have been.
Yes. Now, do you read the Tribune?
I do. I read it quite a bit since I do business in the town, and the Tribune is a businessman's paper.
All right. Is it a principal source of news for you?
Yes, I read it every day.
All right. Now, you said you were acquainted with Colonel Watson. What's your opinion of him?
Colonel Watson is a good, God-fearing man, and he speaks the God's honest truth.
All right. Is he an influential man here in Columbia?
Truly he is.
All right. Now, what was your reaction to the assault on Miss Olmsted?
I was rightly sickened by it, sick to my stomach.
And anything else?
Well, I was angry.
Hey, did the fact that the allegation that this was a black man attacking a white girl have anything to do with the fact that you were sickened?
It certainly did. You know, every once in a while you can see, if they know you're not looking, you can see Negroes leering at the white women and you know, just desiring to spoil them. And it sickens me that one actually had the gall and the nerve to try and do that to Miss Olmsted.
Now, did you follow the story of Miss Olmsted's attack closely in the following week?
I did. I read every drop that the Tribune wrote.
And was there discussion about the case in town and among, for example, people at your store?
There was quite a bit of discussion. It seemed like the first or second thing that was on people's minds.
Was there any discussion during the week following Miss Olmsted's attack of taking the matter out of the hands of the courts?
At first, no, but as time moved on, yes, there was discussion of that
All right.
nature.
Were you part of any of those discussions?
I surely was. By the time that Friday had rolled around, I myself was advocating the position that that we should take matters into our own hands.
So at the beginning of the week, the conversations weren't serious, in your view.
Not particularly, no.
And what changed? When did the talk go from being unserious to being serious?
Well, I would say that maybe on Tuesday or Thursday it did. On Thursday, people learned in the papers that 2 Negroes were caught raping 2 Negresses, and a lot of the talk and the feeling around town is if they would do this sort of thing to their own women, how much longer before they're going to be coming for white women in the town? This is the sort of thing one ought to nip in the bud, so to speak. And so at that time, the citizens, and myself included, became quite concerned that justice was not moving swiftly enough.
All right. That phrase, swift justice, where did you hear that for the first time?
Believe it were in the paper.
Now, when did you first find out that Mr. James T. Scott was alleged to be the attacker of Miss Olmsted?
Well, I knew that they had picked, I believe I knew that they had picked him up by Tuesday, but
You knew his name by Tuesday?
I'm really not sure, sir.
When did you first find out his name? Was it on Friday when it was published in the paper?
I know that it was on Friday.
All right. And you read it in the Tribune, did you not?
I did read it in the Tribune.
All right. How did knowing the name of the alleged attacker of Ms. Olmsted change things in your view?
Well, I think that it didn't change things much. I mean, it gave us, we knew who it was, essentially, if that's what you're inquiring about.
You knew who it was because it was published in the newspaper?
Yes, I did. I believed that Mr. Olmstein had identified the attacker, had identified the assailant, as was reported.
Okay. Now, did you read in the Tribune that it was certain that it was Mr. Scott?
I don't know if I remember it in those words, sir.
Okay. Now, once you learned the name of James T. Scott on Friday, when it's published in the Tribune, the next day rolls around on Saturday. Tell me about your day on Saturday.
Well, I opened up the shop early, as I usually do, and people were coming in, and they were talking. They were talking quite a bit about what had transpired in the courthouse the previous day, but we did not know exactly what had happened. But there was a real sentiment around the town that things were not moving swiftly enough, that justice was not being done.
Well, did you urge any particular course of action on Saturday morning?
I certainly did. I closed up my shop at about 1 or 1:30, and I started walking the town, and it was my position that we ought to bust in there and get him out and see that justice is done.
Well, in the early parts of the day on Saturday, the 28th, were you very successful in bringing anyone else to that view in the beginning of the day?
At first, not particularly.
All right. Well, what happened? Did anything happen in the early evening that assisted you in your advocacy efforts?
Well, I don't know if it assisted me or not, but certainly by the time that the paper was published at around 5 o'clock, and we learned that the trial was not set until later that May, that made quite a lot of people angry because here we were being promised swift justice. We could have had a trial within the day, and yet it's off an entire month.
Well, did you read the paper that came out on Saturday, April the 28th?
I surely did, and many of my compatriots did as well.
Okay. Do you remember the front page article on Saturday, April the 28th?
Yes, I think I would remember it.
Well, if you look to your left, is that the article that you read on Saturday, April the 28th?
It looks like it, yes.
Okay. Do you remember reading that it repeated that Scott was definitely guilty?
I do remember that, yes.
Okay. What do you remember else? Actually, I want to back up for 1 second to an earlier article. Let me just take a look here at this particular one to see what we want to talk about here. Yes. Do you remember this particular passage? This one right here. There has been much talk of mob activity, and men of sound judgment who do not believe in mob law are of the opinion that if it's positively proven that the Negro is the man who committed the crime, that the taxpayers should be saved any costs that might accrue from a trial and that summary justice should be dealt to him. Do you recall reading that particular passage?
Yes, I do, and I was particularly pleased because I count myself among the men of sound judgment.
And did you repeat that phrase to others around town as you were attempting to convince them to seek swift justice?
I did. It was indeed the talk of the town.
All right. And did you rely on the authority of the paper, the good reputation of Colonel Watson, as you were using this phrase, men of sound judgment?
I did. I said that Colonel Watson was a man of God and he would not lie.
All right. Now, also on April 28th, there was an editorial. Did you read that as well on the inside page of the Tribune?
I did.
All right. And do you remember the part at the end where the colonel wrote, an attempt at the crime above mentioned is just as heinous and culpable as an accomplishment. This trio should feel the halter draw in vindication of the law.
Yes, the halter draw.
Yeah. Did you know what that meant when you first read it?
Well, I'll admit I did not know initially. Colonel Watson speaks in very fancy language sometimes, but after asking some other people around town, yes, it means the hangman's noose, essentially.
All right. Did you use that phrase when you were trying to convince other people to go and lynch James T. Scott?
Indeed, I did.
Did you see other persons reading the Tribune on the evening of Saturday the 28th?
Of course.
And did you hear other people using these phrases, men of sound judgment, swift justice, halter draw?
Yes, many of us were.
Now, in the end, is it your opinion that what Colonel Watson wrote in the Tribune on Saturday helped you to convince other people to join in saving the cost of a trial?
Well, I really couldn't say for certain, but it seems to me that there was quite a big change after that paper was printed, and we all knew that it was Scott beyond a shadow of a doubt.
All right. Now, did you and others break James T. Scott out of the Columbia jail on Saturday, April the 28th?
I was amongst those men, yes.
And how many people were actively involved?
Well, not
Actively.
not many of us.
All right. How did you do it, basically?
Well, at first we figured we'd break through the main residential part of the facility, but after we broke in there, one of the deputies said first man who came through there, he'd kill him. So we went around to the backside and started attacking the wall with sledgehammers.
So, one man with a gun stopped you from breaking into the jail.
Well, ain't no one wanna die, sir.
Exactly. So after you were frightened off, this mob was frightened off by one man with a gun, you went around the other way and broke in the other side.
Yes, and I believe you'd do the same.
I hope to God I would not. Now, did the police officials other than this one courageous sheriff resist you?
I wouldn't say so, no. They had some words by the time we'd broken the man out, but they weren't, anything we paid much attention to.
Now, one of our earlier witnesses had some doubt about whether you were wearing masks that night. Were you masked?
No, sir.
You went there with your faces open to God and everyone else, did you not?
It was a righteous thing.
Did you go armed? Did you bring guns?
No, sir.
Because you weren't resisted, were you?
We were not.
And you didn't expect to be resisted, did you?
We did not.
Well, when you got inside, there were 3 other accused rapists in the jail that night, other than Mr. Scott, right?
Yes, sir.
But you didn't take any of them out, did you?
No, they were not our target.
Because the only man in the jail that night who'd been accused of raping a white girl was James T. Scott.
Yes, sir.
And indeed, you didn't know he'd been accused of raping a white girl, did you? You understood that it was an attempted assault, an uncompleted attempted assault. Isn't that right? Because that was what was published in the paper.
I know that that is what he attempted to do, yes.
Now, after you got him out of the jail, where'd you take him?
Well, we started marching him towards Stewart's Bridge, the scene of the crime.
All right. The scene of the crime, a curious phrase. Which crime do you refer to?
I refer to the rape, of course, sir.
All right.
The attempted rape.
Okay. Why there?
We thought that it would be fitting justice for him.
Is this the bridge?
Yes, that is the bridge.
What happened when you got to the bridge?
Well, our rope wasn't long enough to properly hang him, so we had to send somebody off to get one of those ropes, a longer rope. And while the man was off getting the rope, Mr. Albstein, he got up there and
Is that
started...
Mr. Olmsted?
Yes, I'm sorry, he's some kraut. He got up there and he started talking about the laws or something like that. It sounded like pansy stuff to me and a lot of my fellows' ears. And so we just
Now,
told him...
this fellow whom you're disparaging as some kraut was in fact the father of a little girl whose assault you were trying to vindicate. Is that right?
I suppose he was.
It's what he said he was.
It's true.
It's
yes.
what you knew he was.
Yes, I know.
And what did he say to you in your righteousness on the bridge?
He said, let the law take its course, or something as to that effect.
In the name of the flag of the United States of America, I beg you, do not do this thing. Let the law take its course, or words to that effect. Is that not what he said?
Yes, it was very weak stuff.
Apparently so. Now, other than Professor Olmsted, did anyone else try to dissuade you from hanging Mr. Scott? Columbia, Missourian reporter by the name of Charles Nutter, perhaps?
He might have said something.
Right. So the girl's father begged you not to lynch him. And a representative of the university and its paper came and begged you not to lynch him. Was Colonel Watson there?
I think I've seen him at a distance, but
Did he come over to the scene of the lynching and say anything? Did he beg you not to lynch him?
no,
He just watched.
he was watching.
What did the crowd say to Professor Olmsted?
Well, we told him that if he didn't want to be a part of it, get the hell out.
And you told him something else, didn't you? Or the crowd told him something else? Didn't the crowd tell him that if he didn't shut up, you'd lynch him too?
We would not use those words, and nor would we have done such, but maybe somebody did say something as to that effect.
Okay, so then what happened after Professor Olmsted was unsuccessful in dissuading you?
Well, he left, and we got the longer rope, and
Pause here a second. You were there,
I was there.
and you
actually
got
was
the
there.
rope.
Yes.
And what did you do with the rope?
Well, my lawyer has advised me that since I've been acquitted, I cannot be put on trial, so I will admit it. I put that rope around his neck, and I shoved that Negro rapist off, and I sent him to hell where he belongs.
And then what did you do?
We left.
And you went home. And you gave a statement in this case, did you not? Mr. Barkwell, you gave a statement?
A statement?
Yes, a statement preparatory to your coming in here and testifying.
I did,
A
indeed.
written statement, right?
Yes, sir.
And isn't the last line on that statement that after you finished hanging James T. Scott, you left and you went home and you slept like a baby?
I did, sir. I slept quite well.
I have no further questions in this witness.
Cross.
Just to clarify, sir, obviously in his professional capacity, you've met the colonel, but you two are not social friends who hang out and drink together or play cards together or anything like that.
No, sir.
All right. And although you think he has sensible opinions most of the time, you've certainly had opportunities in which you've disagreed with things he said or reported and have felt free to tell your friends that, right?
None rightly come to mind.
Well, didn't you in your statement say he has sensible opinions most of the time?
I do agree with him most of the time.
Now, when it was first reported that there was an attack, you were very upset, weren't you?
I was very upset, yes.
Because it's your general belief that the filthy Negro scum are always leering at our white women and dreaming about soiling them. It was just a matter of finding out which one of them it was this time.
Indeed, I've said as much, yes.
Okay. So your general sentiment is the whole community needs to be watched all the time and kept down, kept in their place, or they will commit crimes. Is that correct?
More or less.
All right. Now, early in the week, the prosecutor brought out that there wasn't a lot of heated discussion, but that's only because early in the week you didn't know for sure who to talk to people about doing something about, because you didn't know who the suspect was, right?
We did not know earlier in the week, that is correct.
So there's no point in talking about doing some mob lynching or something until you know who to go grab to make an example of.
That is correct.
All right. Now, although you read the newspaper every day, and still do, I presume?
I do.
All right. You don't remember any specific articles until the Friday article, right? The article that identified the assailant and explained why he had been identified as the assailant.
That would not be correct, Counselor. I remember quite a few of the articles leading up to that point, and maybe not in detail.
Didn't you say in your statement, I don't remember anything special about the Tribune's coverage of the Olmsted rape, at least until the day the girl identified the Negro who attacked her?
I just meant to say that
That was a Friday.
I do not remember them word for word, but I do remember a few things.
Now, what you remember, the reason you remember that Friday and focused on it is because the police released information reported through the paper that she identified him by sight, that she identified him by the sound of his voice when she couldn't see him, and she identified him by smell aside from the sight and the voice.
That's correct. She walked up to him, looked him in the eye, and identified the perpetrator.
In a variety of different ways.
Exactly.
So the information the police released convinced you of her guilt.
Yes, sir.
All right, now on Saturday morning, before the Saturday article came out, you had heard discussions going on that the rumblings from the week were becoming focused and people were talking for real about doing stuff, right?
Yes, we were rightly angry.
Right. But you closed your shop to go and talk to people because you felt like they might be too cowardly to act unless you were there to help them focus on what needed to be done.
I don't know about that, but I thought that every man has a right to his sensible opinion and has a right to say such.
Now, you said you began circulating around town listening to what people were saying.
Yes, sir.
And the men, I know, were angry, but were still a little afraid to do anything.
Yes.
And you thought they were being cowards.
Yes, sir.
Because it's not a matter of protecting this girl, it's a matter of protecting all of our women here in this community, correct?
Exactly.
All right. And you told them so.
Yes.
And over the course of the afternoon, it seemed to you that more and more people were coming over to your way of thinking as you circulated from group to group.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, the newspaper article comes out. Did people immediately read the newspaper and rush off to the jail?
A lot of people began buying the newspaper and reading it quite vividly, but I do not recall when exactly the mob formed.
When people were reading the newspaper, people were actually chuckling and laughing about the colonel's fancy talk, right?
Myself amongst them.
All right. So it wasn't that he directed you all to go do this. It's just, well, the newspaper's reporting lots of sensible men are talking about this sort of stuff, and here we are talking about it.
Well, I remember that Colonel Watson put inside his paper that if swift justice were not had, and if there were people who tried to delay the trial or do something as to that effect, or get the boy off, then it would be possible that violence would be taken into our own hands. And I cannot remember exactly what article he put that in. I believe it might have been his Friday, but I know that he put that in there.
Now, on the Saturday article that you're talking about, where he talked about public opinion being stretched to the breaking point, he
Yes.
said, should the Negro be sentenced to be hanged after a trial in court, and subsequently sentimental persons be moved by what they believe is for the best interests of the community to have his sentence commuted, this would be another signal for violence, and people should be warned to let the law take its course. So is he telling you get to go hang somebody right away, or is he just saying, hey, trust the law, don't be wishy-washy about this
The
stuff?
way that I interpreted that is it would be a signal for violence for people to take matters into their own hands.
So what about all this language about trusting to the courts?
I can't rightly say about that.
You just decided he didn't really mean that part, he only meant the part about what people were saying.
I don't know.
You don't, okay. Well, you were part of the crowd that eventually went to the jail, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. And you didn't go in the front because of the gun. You went around to the back, started breaking in with the sledgehammers, right?
Yes.
So in your opinion, you were right there. If any of the police officers had presented a gun and said, gentlemen, you must back off or we'll have to shoot, do you think a lot of people would have backed off?
It might have delayed us. I don't know if it would have prevented it.
You weren't armed, right?
Not at the moment.
And didn't you say when you went to the other side, hey, none of us were ready to die for this?
Certainly not.
Okay. Did any of the police officers ever even suggest that they would resist by violence if y'all came in and took this man away?
They did not put up much of a protest, no.
Okay. So it took you, what, an hour and a half to sledgehammers and then getting an acetylene torch and cutting your way in, right?
Yes,
All right. You were there for this whole part, right?
indeed.
Was the colonel there with your group talking about here's what we need to do, or offering the sledgehammer, or bringing the acetylene torch, or anything like that?
No, I did not see him.
Or was he there encouraging you, saying, all right, good job, or anything like that?
No.
But there were lots of other people around encouraging you and saying, good job, let's go, let's get him, let's hang him, right?
Not in those words.
To that general effect.
Sure.
All right. And when the crowd went down to the bridge, did you feel encouraged by the presence of thousands of people who were with your crowd as you went down to the bridge to hang him?
I certainly did.
Okay? And it gave you, I guess, wind in your sails that what you were doing was righteous and that's what you ought to be doing.
Indeed, though I knew it before.
Okay. Now, when you pushed him off the bridge, didn't you do that in part because you felt like the crowd was starting to get a little weak in the knees and soft-hearted about things, and you didn't want to wait for the crowd to change their mind again, you wanted to get it done?
Yes, it seemed to me like no one wanted to do what needed to be done, but I was in the war. I've seen bad things. I can do what needs to be done.
Okay. Nothing further.
Redirect.
Quick question. I was looking at your statement again, Mr. Barkwell, and did you say the following? Did the Tribune make me hang that boy? Hell no. I wanted to hang him from the first. But I got to tell you that Colonel Watson made the idea of hanging him and not waiting for the damn lawyers respectable.
Yes, sir.
No further questions.
Recross.
No, Your Honor.
Finally excused state.
Yes.
Finally excused defense.
Yes, Your Honor.
You may step down.
Your Honor, at this point, the government rests and requests that we go into recess for a period of 10 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a 10-minute break. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, do not discuss this case among yourselves or with others, or permit anyone to discuss it in your hearing. Don't form or express any opinion about the case until it's finally given to you to decide. We'll be in recess for 10 minutes. Marshall will take charge of the panel. We'll be in recess.